Hello and welcome to the Emerging Tech Horizons podcast. I'm Arun Serafin, Executive Director of NDIA's Emerging Technologies Institute. Today we're going to talk about the impact of trying to leverage commercial technologies and how DoD is trying to improve its ability to move faster and accelerate these kinds of commercial solutions into the field. To help us walk through the challenges and the opportunities and maybe some of the successes in trying to do that is Robert Geckle.
Thanks, Arun. It's great to be here and really looking forward to the discussion.
And Rob's perfect for this conversation. He's chairman and CEO of Airbus US Space and Defense, and he oversees all the operations, activities, and strategy for Airbus US companies in America. Welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here.
So, Rob, you come to the CEO position at Airbus USA after a long career in and around Washington and other places. Give us a little background about how you came to the position and what you're trying to do in the position.
Yeah, sure. Well, I try not to talk about my past as a lawyer because it's really not good for my CEO branding. But sometimes if you're asked directly, you have to be honest. So I started as an M&A lawyer representing international companies doing cross-border M&A in the aerospace and defense field. And then I eventually was hired by EADS, as Airbus was then called, European Aeronautic Defense and Space Company, pursuing large defense programs like the tanker program and also looking to acquire companies both in the US and elsewhere. And over the last 20 years, I've rotated back and forth between commercial aviation, defense, M&A, both in Europe and in the US. And 4 years ago, I came back here to lead the defense and space business, which is what I'm doing right now. And this is a special FOCI mitigated company. FOCI stands for Foreign Ownership, Control, and Influence. And we're set up to leverage our European heritage technology to insource it into the US, modify it, adapt it in a classified environment, and deliver it to the warfighter.
So on that point, then, I people know what Airbus is, may not be so familiar with Airbus US. So how do I think about those two things? Tell me about the relative sizes and the areas of focus, especially of the US part of the company.
Yeah, sure. And I get this all the time. People are really familiar with our aviation business, and we're very proud of that. It's a $70 billion organization, well industrialized, and I'm proud to have been part of the industrialization in the US because we're building single aisles in Mobile, Alabama. We source about $14 billion in the US. In fact, we're the number one export customer in the United States, and very proud of that. And we also have a defense and space business and a military helicopter and civil helicopter business. So you would look at about 30 some odd % of the business is attributable to those other lines of business. Here in the US, we're focused on the military helicopter segment. We build those helicopters and support them in Columbus, Mississippi, and Grand Prairie, Texas. We have an unmanned aerial systems business located in Huntsville, Alabama. We build space systems, optronics in Merritt Island, Florida. And then we have a multi-mission fixed-wing aircraft called the Air Power line of business, which we support out of Mobile, Alabama. Also space exploration capabilities in Houston, Texas, and engineering capabilities around the company. But I think the heritage of the commercial business and the ability to manufacture at scale and innovate commercially is really helping Airbus US's position in the defense space. So when you have resources that may be flat and you have pacing and scaling requirements that are really tight and budgets that may be either CRs or one-year constraints, we're really well positioned to take that commercial technology, that dual-use technology, and then modify it quickly and rapidly here in the US for the US DoD. So, we're known for commercial aviation, we're known for mass production, but the heritage there is also useful in our defense business, particularly right now with the DoD looking for affordable mass and to scale quickly.
So is the company primarily a manufacturing company, or is it primarily an R&D company, or it's both elements of both?
Yeah, it's both. So historically, if you looked at our defense business in the US, you would describe it as a platform business. Now, we're selling fixed-wing aircraft, we're selling light utility helicopters, and those are great, and we're continuing to invest in those platforms. We have 500 helicopters flying through the Army and Army National Guard. We sell a lot of CN-295s to classified customers. Where we are trying and where I'm trying to push the company with success is to be relevant for joint all-domain data-centric warfare and capabilities that are deployable in Asia Pacific. And so, yes, we're a manufacturer both in Europe and we're manufacturing in the US, but we're also innovating in unmanned aerial systems, in satellite communication technology that is more of, I'd say, a self-investment R&D case, leveraging commercial technology, but then doing our own self-investment.
So in all those locations, will I find an engineering center?
You will. In fact, I firmly believe to be a defense company in the U.S., you have to be an engineering company. This is why I love engineers. I love the engineers that we're hiring and we're ramping up. But you have to be able to deliver capabilities, but also adapt and develop solutions sua sponte for the warfighter. And so we've really ramped up, particularly in the space ecosystem, exquisite engineering resources, but also even in the platform business where you have structural engineers, folks that can modify and adapt the avionics. So you will see engineers at all of our locations, and I'm looking forward to continue to reinforce those capabilities. Sometimes we have a teaming. We need to team with other partners and companies, particularly in autonomy and AI, but we're looking to move up the food chain towards that prime or lead system integrators across the board.
So you talked about the connection between, we'll call it big Airbus and Airbus US. Do you share engineering centers? Do you share people?
It depends. It can be hard when you're working in a classified environment. You really have every air gap systems and you have cleared engineers. However, on the platform business, we have a large commercial engineering center in Wichita, co-located Wichita State. We have a large engineering center in Mobile, Alabama. And these are folks who are really good at wing technology, fuselage technology. So if you're looking at composites or repairs, I'm always looking to see, well, what can we do? What can we do to synergize on the platform itself? And maybe we need to take some of those employees, 5, 10 engineers who are clearable, and pull them into the Airbus US environment. Now they work for us and they're employed by Airbus US, and we can carry their tickets and they're able to work in that secure location, but they have that heritage knowledge of the technology and the platform and the airworthiness elements. So you try and do that wherever you can. There are limits, based on security clearance
and so
requirements.
Airbus US is then positioned, in my opinion, interestingly, between two sets of partners that the Department of Defense claims it wants to work with, and in both cases treats them arguably not so well. The Department of Defense says we want to work with the commercial sector. We want to take advantage of commercial innovation and speed. We want to leverage commercial markets because it helps reduce our costs. But we don't treat commercial companies that great when they try to break into the defense industrial base. Same time, we say we want to work with our allies and partners. We love leveraging their innovation. We certainly love leveraging their market, but we don't treat them that well when they try to enter into the defense industrial base. You've cleverly positioned yourself between both of those things. So let's think about both of them one by one. So as you think about the commercial technologies that you talked about, leveraging in places like with Wichita State, going after commercial technology challenges in the airline industry, let's say, how are you trying to incorporate some of those technologies, some of those learnings back into your defense products? And then what are some of the challenges you're running into?
Yeah, great questions. So focusing on the use enlisting commercial capabilities for the DoD, I'll give a couple success stories, which I think give me some optimism that some customers, and in fact increasingly so, are willing to harvest commercial technology, particularly where they have limited budgets and they need to move fast. One example, which is a historic, is our helicopter. So the Lakota, which is a militarized version of a COTS solution. So it's the LUH-145. So that is a helicopter that has been built in Dunneworth, Germany. We won that program in 2006, and we've delivered nearly 500 on time and on budget, because what we did is we took a readily available COTS solution. It fit perfectly for the light utility helicopter mission. We built it in Mississippi because the customer is really important for them to have that local footprint and local engineers and tech reps. But we really didn't have to modify it that much for the end user. You're talking about classified radios and some mission systems, and that's worked out really well, where we've delivered capability for a product that was self-invested for the commercial market. Another good example is more recent, which is Space Development Agency. So we have a factory in Florida that has put 600 satellites in orbit for OneWeb, which is a commercial constellation, and we call those our Aero 150. When Space Development Agency came up with the concept of a proliferated low Earth orbit constellation for missile tracking and the transport layer of joint all-domain command and control, we were able to take that 150, modify it with higher size, weight, and power to an Aero 150. We made all the necessary self-investments for clean rooms, SCIFs, the ability to do classified payloads. And so we're able to take that heritage IP, which was invested by the commercial segment, and now you're talking about modify, which is a lot faster than doing it from the beginning. So I think some customers, HDA in particular, is really interested in spiral development, in leveraging what you can get from commercial technology, and then allowing companies that can work in classified spaces to do the rest and the adaptations. So those are good, pretty good examples. And we're going to look for more of those. We try and see where the demand signals are. If it's for commercial, we look for a commercial solution. If it's something more exquisite, well, then you're looking at a FAR 15, and maybe the business case is a little bit different, and you need to address that maybe a little bit differently.
And in that transition of commercial technology to the defense side, I'm curious, is the ability to transfer software from one side to the other going as smoothly as the ability to transfer hardware? The speeds are different, right?
I would say
security is different.
Yeah, they're both challenging, right? So the Lakota, you have a global supply chain. It was not really a sensitive aircraft. Now we're looking to self-invest for an on-crewed variant of that for a sensitive on-crewed logistics connect mission in Asia Pacific for the Marine Corps. But when you talked originally about the Lakota, really you had a global supply chain, and you're transferring. It was really a very thin prime element for satellites. As you Americanize your supply chain and you're having new hardware providers, you can have a supply chain. It's a new supply chain. Maybe you're certifying these folks, and some of them can fall down on you, and that can be a challenge on the hardware side. On the software, look, you've got to have the code, right down to the source code in the US. It has to be American software. You can leverage your heritage software engineers, maybe from a validation standpoint or lessons learned or training. But really, you've got to do the coding and the code writing in the US. And that can be a schedule and time risk to the program. And so we're focused on that as in a workforce, and so ramping up quickly and teaming with the right partners is how we try and tackle that. But I think that is an area. But I wouldn't say one is easier than the other. They both have different challenges and problems. But with new starts, you have some teething programs. I saw this in our commercial aviation business, where we rolled out the new engine option, and it was a mature platform. We're just adding new engines, and even there, you will have teething with integrating new engines and nacelles on the platform. So it's no different in the defense world, right? Eventually, when you're cutting metal and you're moving your supply chain, you're going to run into challenges, but it's our job to manage those for our customers.
So on the other side, then, you also work with allies and partners. Where is Airbus? We'll call it Big Airbus. Where's it headquartered? Yeah,
so the headquarters, I would say the industrial headquarters is in Toulouse, France.
Okay.
So it is I'll call it a Société Européenne. So it's technically headquartered in the Netherlands, but the headquarters, the management team, the leadership folks are in Toulouse for the global business. The defense headquarters is in Munich, Germany.
And so in that case, now you're taking global technology, sometimes sold commercially, sometimes probably sold to foreign militaries, and trying to bring it back to the U.S. and sell it to the department. You talked through some of the commercial challenges. Are they the same on working with allies and partners?
Yeah, it's different. And I'm glad you talked about allies and partners, because look, we're never going to fight alone. I mean, we never have. Like, you look at the revolution, the French were helping us, right? I mean, so we're always going to have allies and partners. And I think it's an area where we can do better. Airbus US is able to help in a couple different ways. You traditionally look at allies and partners and the easy button, FMS, right? We're going to sell US technologies to allies so we have interoperability. Okay, and we support FMS programs.
Foreign military sales.
Foreign military sales or foreign military financing or direct commercial sales. That process is not easy. It takes a lot of bank shots, takes a lot of time, and I think we probably need to work on accelerating it. Another way allies and partners can deliver value and that we deliver is you take a technology that's already built, like the CN-295 that's built in Spain. It would take hundreds of millions of dollars to develop that in the US. But if you need 4, 5, 6, well, you buy them. I will be the prime. We'll help missionize them. And that's another way allies can deliver value. It's faster and cheaper to buy our 295s versus the competing ISR, multi-mission, or maritime patrol aircraft. But where I think we could or should do more, and where Airbus US is trying to foster interoperability, is the standard settings, say, of constellations, space constellations. I think we're uniquely situated because we're working on those programs in the US and our affiliates are doing defense constellations in Europe. Could there be more industry collaboration on standard settings so that JADC2 will be JADC2P, with P standing for partners? Right. I think there's more that can be done there.
Right.
And the other area where I'm hopeful that AUKUS, the nuclear ships, is a template that we can copy and paste, because you really, if you really want to move fast and you really want affordable mass and you want to innovate quickly, then you need co-production, co-development. And for the ITAR restrictions to lay flat, for all of the G2G elements to lay flat to make that happen is challenging. But if it can, I think you really are going to have bigger punching power. You look at collaborative combat aircraft. Let's say that's an attritable variant. Well, how are you going to, let's say you need it by 2027 or 2028 and you need thousands of them. I'm all for increasing and reinforcing our defense industrial base in the US, but it's not going to be fast enough. We need to work with allies and partners for developing and building things of that nature. So I think, and there's appetite. I think there's appetite there when I talk to potential partners, and I think there's appetite for that in the building. But navigating the challenges is still, I'd say, an uphill slog. And AUKUS is a good example. It's taken quite some time to have the ball move forward there. But I think we should leverage the progress there and look at whether we can do it with other allies, NATO allies in Europe.
And this year at our Emerging Technologies Conference, with heavy partnership from EUCOM and AFRICOM, we tried to focus on allies and partners and their technical capabilities and how our NDIA members can partner with some of them and even look to some of those countries as markets. Mm-hmm. We also had a heavy element talking about JADC2, JADC2 or JADC2P. Mm-hmm. Next year's event will be in August 2025. Again, we're hoping to focus in on those two areas. You've just signed yourself up to maybe
I'll be there.
Be a panelist or something. That'd be great. Speaking of 2025, we're about to enter 2025. There's a new administration coming in. The rhetoric from the previous administration, the current administration is, yeah, we want to embrace both of these kinds of partners, commercial partners, allies, and partners. What do you see happening over the next year or so? Let's say, what do you wish would happen as you think about the new administration moving in and maybe adjusting policies and priorities?
Yeah, well, in terms of what I wish for, I think what I just described in terms of working with allies and partners with greater speed, I think that would be good. In terms of what I predict, I think you're going to have continued momentum on unmanned systems. And that was already the case with the existing administration with CCA and looking at how we can come up with manned-on-man teaming and force multipliers in denied environments where you don't have pilots at risk. Unmanned systems, hypersonics, effectors, I think will be important. And I think you kind of hinted at it, the desire to use commercial innovation, particularly when there's self-investment, I think is going to continue. I think that is going to be a theme. You'll do both. You're still going to have the big exquisite programs. Missiles are not going to be dual use. You're still going to have the F-35 and these programs, which are not going to be dual use. But I do think there's going to be an increasing appetite to find companies that are willing to innovate quickly and deliver commercial dual-use technology to the DoD, and that's where I am looking to position the company. We want to do both the platform work, but also we want to partner with those companies because maybe they can, and certainly they can help our platforms be even more effective, whether it's for autonomy or autonomous solutions, and some of the AI solutions that we can couple with our platforms historically and make them more relevant for Asia Pacific or for peer deterrence. And I can't, when I talk about the future and what I wish for, I can't resist talking about, the tanker strategy. So we've been waiting for a strategy, what we're going to do, whether it's NGAS future tanker or whether it's a recapitalization. And I look forward to seeing what the strategy is and see if we can be a solution there. Because look, I believe strongly we have the best tanker in the world, and would love to deliver that capability. I think there is a tanker shortfall when I look into the future, and if we can add value, that would be great, and we'll respond to that demand signal if it's there.
When you talk about attritable systems, or we'll call them maybe disposable systems, things that are delivered more on commercial style, latest and greatest hardware, latest and greatest software, pushing out versions quick, it makes sense from a technology perspective. In my mind, it makes less sense from two other perspectives, right? So some defense contractors position themselves very well to sell things at a lower price and sustain them for a long time. Right. And that's a good, successful business model going back decades. You're pushing against that. Folks in the Pentagon try to position themselves to get a program of record locked into place, into the budget for a long time.
Right.
When you're telling people to break things up and deliver new systems and dispose of old systems, you're pushing back against that as well. Agree, disagree? How do you push back?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, your aftermarket business for target drones is never going to be very good. So if you're building in sustainment costs and margins on the aftermarket for some of these capabilities, having said that, I do think there's opportunities for companies like Airbus US on the attritable side. I mean, we're really moving towards tactical drones. We want to have a full panoply of products for the customer. So if you want a class 2 tactical drone UAS system where the missile is going to cost a lot more than the system, well, we can deliver that. And we have some stratospheric unmanned aerial systems that can also do that. And there the business case is a little different, right? Okay, you're looking at a services model. Maybe you're operating these systems as a COCO model or a GOCO model, and that's the business case that makes sense. On some of this, I have commercial aspirations, so that helps the DoD and it helps me also in terms of the investments. Look, if I can have 100 Zephyrs flying with our partners Alto, and some of them are leveraging commercial revenue because they're providing comms backhaul for folks playing video games, and also transponders that can, at a moment's notice, be surged with cleared U.S. pilots sitting side by side, uniform pilots. Well, that's a business model that works, and you don't necessarily need to have this big aftermarket business case. At the end of the day, a business case has to hold, right? If you want mass and you're asking industry to invest and deliver that mass, whether it's 155s, you got to have some assurance that the CFO can say, well, okay, I'll do that, but how long is the contract and what's the demand? And if it's not a commercial dual use, no one is going to invest. So, at the end of the day, it's kind of simple, right? You're going to need a sufficiently long bankable program to make those investments. So on some, if you have a dual use or if it's a services model, then maybe industry can lean forward with that business case. If it's something like 155s, I have some sympathy for folks who say, yeah, this is going to take a long time to ramp up and this is going to cost a lot of money. And by the way, we ramped down because the demand signal had disappeared. So those are just the laws of financial physics, I would say.
And when you think about these changes you're talking about, what's the sector you think that we could go after this first? Is it UAS? You think that makes sense?
Well, I don't think we have a choice. UAS is here and it's going to continue to be here. And when you look at the deployable, the challenges of deployment in Asia Pacific and denied spaces, whether it's logistics, whether it's forward positioning, you're going to need unmanned systems. And the good news is I see so much innovation.
And you guys do air systems? Do you do ground and undersea?
We have
as well?
Air systems. We don't have the subsea or ground segment in the U.S. yet, but we do have the platforms and the autonomy solutions for deployed unmanned systems, maritime in particular, and stratospheric as well. And we're certainly not the only ones. And we're teaming with some very sophisticated partners that have, I'd say, some of those special sauce with the AI component. That's not going to stop. And I think if you do not lean into that, then you risk being irrelevant for your customer.
The acquisition,
replicators, CCA, for logistics, you're all going to have on-man components to that,
right?
And these are going to be priorities, I believe, for
even
whoever
going
the
into
administration.
the next,
Yes,
right. And when you're talking about the change in behavior, you mentioned using maybe a services model to procure some of these things. And if you think about it, right, the Department of Defense does buy electricity, it buys fuel, buys food, uses a very different model than it uses to buy aircraft carriers. And I guess what you're saying is, even though this drone or whatever is a thing, maybe look at how you buy a service like electricity.
Yeah, and I think I will give the building some credit here. When you look at modular open systems architecture, I think that's the idea. Okay, I'm going to buy the hardware, and I understand that you need a business case to build 500 of these helicopters. But if you're also imposing modular open systems architecture, and we've stepped to that, we are investing in a MOSA solution, then the customer can look at iterative, scaled, rapid development of apps, call them sort of applications or software uploads or additional sensors that would be, sort of it's payload agnostic MOSA architecture. And then, yes, we have the hardware business case that works, but then we maybe have shorter slugs of acquisition for some of those solutions, because you really don't want to get, and I'm sensitive, the innovation is so rapid. If you locked into a 5-year contract, a program of record for a small tactical drone and its systems and its software, I don't believe it's going to be relevant in 5 years. I mean, I think it's going to, the innovation is going to surpass. So I think you have to be creative on your acquisition strategy to get industry to step to the scaling, and also having some flexibility for the customer to rapidly innovate and adopt new technologies as they continue to come online.
It's a whole nother conversation we should have. I don't quite understand how MOSA works so well with the business models that I've seen in defense industry. But even though I was one of the people pushing on it from the Hill, but okay. So you also happily serve NDIA. You're a member of NDIA, Airbus USA is a member. But you're also on the board of directors of NDIA. So 2 questions from an NDIA perspective. One, how you mentioned working with Wichita State and small businesses, I guess. How do NDIA members find you to work with you? How should they get to you? Second, what is it to be an NDIA board member?
Yeah, well, look, NDIA is a great organization, and when we looked at where do we put our footprint, because Airbus US, Airbus is a huge company. Airbus US is a small part of Airbus, and we need our relationships to be specific and deep. And when we looked at various associations, it was really one choice, because NDIA it covers everything. You have the big primes, you have mid-tier companies, you have small businesses, and it's an environment where my perception is that the customers feel safe to come into this environment. NDIA is an honest broker. It represents all of industry. It's not captive to just the big primes and I think it's an effective way of delivering messages to the customer and creating an environment where you can have those contacts on an industry-wide basis. I mean, I saw the agenda for the ETI seminar in August, and it was a who's who. Everyone was there. Logistics was there. The COCOMs were there. Heidi Shu was there. And these are great forums that I think are unique. And it's also where I learn about what's happening in the industry. I mean, the only reason I know about the PPBE Commission is because you did it, and you were on NDA and you presented it to us. I said, wow, these are really good ideas. And it looks like they're having some adoption. Jen Stewart, great job in terms of just giving me advice sometimes on messages and thought leadership that we think we can push. So I would encourage everyone to look at NDIA as a force multiplier across the industry. And the board really is a well representation of the U.S. defense industrial base.
And it's great. We triple your salary or something like that. I can't track the
and
numbers.
That too, yes.
Yeah. So with that, Rob, I want to thank you for joining us today, and thank everyone for joining us for this episode of Emerging Tech Horizons. I want everyone to visit ETI's website to sign up for our mailing list and register for our various webinars, events, educational offerings, including our Tech 101 series. Look out for announcements for the August 2025 Emerging Technologies Conference. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with all our latest content. A special thank you to Melanie Yu and Daniel Park for producing the podcast. Thanks again, Rob, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us at Emerging Tech Horizons.